Hello, everyone, and welcome to another question and answer session. Today, we are going to be going over the medication protocols and transfer calendars. Just kind of a little bit of a informational moment to kind of talk about what the surrogates go through and what all entails in medications and transfer. I feel like that's the biggest part of your surrogacy journey. And there's a lot of questions that arise from that from any future potential surrogates that we get. So we're going to talk with a few of our most recent or current surrogates that we have with Family Source Consultants. And they're going to give you a little bit of information about what they're going through currently or what their experience was with the medications and transfers. So without any further ado, I would like to go through a couple introductions. Delana, would you like to start and just give us a little bit about yourself, your surrogate journeys and experience in the past, and maybe a little bit about your intended parents?
Thank you. My name is Delana, and I recently completed my first surrogacy journey in February when I delivered a baby boy for two dads that were from outside the United States. They were from Taiwan. And I have two of my own children, 7 and 4. And yeah, that's who I am.
That's perfect. All right, Caitlin, what about you? Well, give us a little bit of an introduction to Caitlin.
Hello, Caitlin. I am in my first surrogacy journey, doing it for intended mom and dad. I just had my second transfer with them, so hopefully all has gone well with that. They live in the Philly area. I live in Erie, PA, so the distance isn't too far. Well, they actually live in Washington now, but initially. I have 3 of my own kids, a 7-year-old little girl and twin 3.5-year-old boys. And yeah, so I'm excited and just hopeful with this transfer.
All right, Brittany, let's have an introduction to you.
Hello all, I'm Brittany. I reside in Texas. I am currently in my second trimester with my intended parents who reside in Florida. This was our second transfer, and the baby's doing wonderfully, and it's the most rewarding experience I've ever gone through in my entire life. I'm a parent to 5. I have 2 biological children and then 3 bonus kids. So we were definitely done planning our family, and so my husband and I are really excited to have the opportunity to help build a family for 2 of the most deserving people ever. So.
That is so sweet. Thank you guys for sharing. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joy Ralick. I am currently a case manager with Family Source Consultants. I am a 2-time surrogate. I delivered for a couple in Chicago back in September of 2020, and I am currently pregnant with their younger brother. 30 weeks as of right now. Everything's going great. And at home, I have 2 of my own children. They're 8 and 6, and the wonderful support of my family has been really crucial in this entire thing. So I think that's the best thing that I can say about my personal life. I would like to get started with probably the question that's on everybody's mind when they're thinking about surrogacy. What made you want to become a surrogate? What made you pursue surrogacy? So Delana, let's start with you.
Well, when I was in college, I had a friend that knew that she would never be able to conceive on her own or carry a child. And the thought popped in my head back then, wow, I wish I could carry a child for her. And then as I continued on through my life, I forgot about that. And a couple years back was at a kid's birthday party, and my friend's close friend, she was a surrogate for a family through Family Source Consultants, and she told me all about it, and I immediately thought, oh, that's right, I wanted to do that so long ago. And so it's hard to explain, but within this, when you meet other surrogates, you'll hear that, as they'll say, you know, they've always had that feeling that they wanted to help a family out, or they wish they could help a family by carrying a child for them. So I don't know, it's just something always in the back of my head. And then once I found out about it a couple years ago, I went ahead and signed up.
That's amazing. I think that's really important that a lot of people start with a personal story or something that kind of tweaks that interest and then like spirals from there. But Caitlin, what about you? What made you decide to pursue surrogacy?
I don't have like an experience like that. Just well before I had even planned or we had our own kids, I've always thought about it. I've always like at that time I always wanted to be pregnant. We didn't have a timeline at that point in time. But then obviously I had my own kids. I actually years back again before kids, I even applied to do it, ended up getting denied. I don't remember the agency or where it was through, but it was so long ago. And so then that kind of was like, okay, well, wonder why. So then it was always in the back of my mind, always, even just the years before kids. And then when I was having my own kids, after our twin boys were born, we were done. So at that point in time, I work in a field as well where like helping those with individuals with disabilities and autism. So it's just something that I really enjoy to do. I love being pregnant. And I've always had great pregnancies. So that was even more of a push if I could be able to help others have kids. I also am married to a woman, so it's not as easy for us either. So, and luckily we have our own personal donor, but just that knowledge of what it takes sometimes to have kids and not having that ability to do it on your own or your body not allowing you to do so, it was even more of a push to that this is something I really wanted to experience, especially now that we were done having our own kids. So like I said, I've always wanted to do it, and I'm beyond ecstatic that I'm finally in that process and doing it now. And it is a very exciting and rewarding experience, even though I haven't hit that yet. But so yeah, that's where I always have been from, where with wanting to become a surrogate.
I love that you say you don't have any personal experience, but you have like the most personal experience because you've like physically lived through IVF and infertility. So it's great. It's wonderful. I love that you're able to share that with other people. All right, Brittany, what about you? What made you decide to become a surrogate?
I'm kind of similar to Caitlin. I don't know where the desire, like that seed of desire, was originally planted, but it's something my entire life I wanted to do. My husband claims that within one of our first dates, before I had my own children, I was like, I'm going to be a surrogate one day. And so being blessed with like 5 beautiful children and like 15 nieces and nephews, and not wanting to continue to grow our family and just seeing how blessed we were, I knew I wanted to be able to do that for someone else who may be struggling with infertility or can't have children on their own. And so when my husband had a vasectomy, so at that point we're like, okay, we're done. And so it just naturally, was the next step. Hey, I'm going to be a surrogate now. And so he was already prepared and on board. So it's just something I've always wanted to do.
And that's awesome that you had his support and that he was really, really on board before you even were going to pursue it anyway.
I
Awesome.
think I knew I was going to be a surrogate before I knew I would be a mom of like my own.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think I'm kind of in a similar boat. I mean, my husband and I, we were really blessed to get pregnant right away. We had such easy pregnancies, easy deliveries, easy labor. I almost felt guilty that I'm like, it's so unfair that other people can't do this. Like, and I can just think about it and it happens. And so I always wanted to do more with my life. And this was something that I talked about with my husband. And I was like, listen, I love being pregnant. I'm not done being pregnant, but I'm done having children. So let's just do this for someone else. Okay, so we're going to get into some more of the questions that revolve around like the medications and transfers. For any surrogates who are looking at possibly joining into this, what will typically happen is once you are medically cleared and you have your legal contracts in place, the clinic will give you your medication calendar, which is all the medications you're going to be taking and the appointments necessary up to and past transfer. Normally they'll schedule a transfer date and work backwards. And so that first email that you get with all the information is probably like, whew, this is really happening. For me, that was the moment that I was like, all right, like this is real, because you get the medications, you get the tasks, you have like something physical to do. So I think the first thing I want to know is, what were some of the concerns you had when you first got those calendars? Like when that first email or call comes through from the clinic and they give you your instructions, did you have any concerns? Were there any mixed emotions? What kind of were you thinking when you first got that calendar? Delana, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I had never given myself a shot before, so that was probably the thing I was most worried about with surrogacy, was, just the doing shots. I'd never done that before. But my friend who had done surrogacy in the past, she said, hey, just jump on a video chat with me and I'll walk you through it, or I'll, help you, talk you while you do it. And the nice thing about that was then I didn't chicken out. My first one was in my belly, and then she just kind of waited and hung out while I got up the courage to do it, and she kind of coaxed me along and was like, just stick it in and you'll be done. And so having that helpful support, then I told a few of the other surrogates, and so when another fellow surrogate was going to start her first shots, I told her. And so we actually met the first week, every day, every morning at the same time. And she's in Florida and I'm in Illinois, and we would do a Facebook Messenger video chat so we could take our shot at the same time. So just like having that support felt really good. And that helped me to not feel so nervous about everything.
That's wonderful. And then you met that other surrogate through the family source groups?
From Family Source, and then they said, hey, if anybody, they started up doing, like, if you're going to transfer in the month of April, you can join this April transfer group. And so that's how we had originally got connected. There was about 5 or 6 of us that were all going to our similar points of journey, and so 2 of us happened to have the same schedule. So we were both told, okay, next month you're going to have your transfer on the same day. So we started our shots on the same timeline, and eventually our schedules did not sync up anymore, but at least we kind of had that timing, which was really cool, because even up to delivery, we both knew that we were just 7 days apart from transfer, and we kind of had that connection the whole time.
Well, I'm really glad that your friend was able to jump on and help you with that initial fear of needles, because I'm sure that's a big one that a lot of people deal with. All right, Caitlin, what about you? What were some of the concerns when you first got your transfer calendar?
Obviously it's a little overwhelming because there's just a lot of information entailed in there. But luckily, I have you, Joy, as my case manager, who I reach out to you all the time, and I also reach out to another surrogate through the agency who I connected with immediately when I first started the process, as she was the one who took my application and started everything with me, whom I'm also really close with. So she's also another individual, and I think that's super important. If you can find somebody to connect with too, who knows, and you can just say, hey, sorry, I am going to bug you. Like, because that was it. Because I felt like if I wouldn't have had that, or you, Joy, I think I would have been kind of lost, and it would have been even more nerve-wracking or scary. So it definitely eased everything. Definitely when I got my box of medications, I was super, super excited, but then opened it and was like, just overwhelmed for sure. I'm like, what is this too? What is this? What? It was a lot. And then when I like sat down and like kind of looked and read at everything, it made it easier. But and I'm not scared of needles at all, but the little needle, the one I had to do the subcutaneous injection into my thigh, terrified me for some reason. I don't know what it was, but I think because I had to do it myself, because I have yet to do the intramuscular injections myself. I think I need to work on doing that. I mean, we have emails back and forth on, well, changing schedules or whatnot, which obviously is not ideal, and really trying. So hopefully this week I can get myself to do that. But I think that was the biggest thing. Then after my first round and going into my second, this time around, it was like cake. I mean, I wasn't nervous about it. I just jabbed it into myself, and I mean, those little needles are nothing, but and it really isn't that big of a deal. It's just initially it definitely is just overwhelming. And then if you've never done it before or given yourself a shot or never given anybody ever a shot, I mean, it's definitely a lot. But once you do it, I think it's very easy. It's just that initial, it definitely is a lot at first, but that goes away pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I think one of the best things about Family Source is when you are assigned to case manager, the majority of us have been a surrogate or an egg donor and have experience with the medications and the shots, and we're more than happy to help you through it. So
Yes.
you are always more than welcome to reach out, which is awesome.
Yes.
All right, Brittany, what about you? What were some of the concerns you had when you first got your medication or transfer calendar?
Obviously, as she said, it's very overwhelming. I was never on any kind of medication in my entire life before I started my surrogacy journey. Luckily, the intended mother, she's gone through multiple rounds of IVF. And I think that also helped us grow closer, that I reached out to her and made her feel really like involved in the process. And I think the main thing was your life is set on such a strict schedule. My first transfer, I was on the suppositories, not the intramuscular injection of progesterone. So that's 3 times a day that you absolutely, have to stop what you're doing and do your suppository. I remember I was actually on a plane headed to my transfer, and I'm like sweating the whole time because you have to do it right then, And I went to the bathroom and got it done. So when my second transfer came, my only concern was the intramuscular progesterone shot. So it is intimidating because it looks like such a large needle, and I did have to give them to myself. But it's the first time, it's scary. And then after that, I couldn't imagine someone else giving me a shot now. I'm pretty sure if I ever have to get a shot from a doctor, it's going to be terrifying because I'm so used to administering them to myself. So, but once you get the hang of it, once I was done with my medications, my schedule was so thrown off. Or I was so used to that strict schedule, I had to get used to not being on that schedule anymore. So it's just a small leap, I would say, to get over considering the large picture of things. It's just the most intimidating at first.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I completely agree that the alarms on your phone will become your best friend because you'll have those set for everything and they'll go off all day long. I feel exactly the same way. I can keep mine nice and short because you've all hit on everything. I think that it's overwhelming at first. Get yourself some support and then just organize it and do it. And there's a small part of me that actually kind of misses the medications a little bit now because it was such like a finite task that you were doing that was like, look at what I'm doing. Like, this is a daily reminder that I'm awesome. Like, and so you're like, you're doing such a big thing for someone. And it was, I miss it a little bit. All right, let's move on to the best part. Stories about transfer day. So I think the most important thing that we want to talk about is, was your transfer local or did you have to travel? And did you do anything fun or superstitious or memorable on your transfer day? So Selena, tell us about your transfer day.
Well, I am in Illinois, and my fertility clinic, the fertility clinic of the parents, is in Texas. So I did have to travel. And one thing that came up that my mom suggested and I talked with my case manager, Dee Dee, about was, when I went down there and just a couple months prior, there was flight changes, flight delays, and I didn't get there until 9 o'clock the night before. And then by the time I got to the hotel and checked in, and I still had to eat and everything. So I was worried that if that was the case, because with the transfer, that what if I got there too late or something happened, or I just coming in stressed, and then you're supposed to be at the clinic the next morning really early. So I asked if I could arrive a day or two ahead of time so 2 days ahead of time, just so that I could have some time to relax and not be so stressed. And so Dee Dee actually thought it was a great idea and suggested to the parents to pay for an extra night at the hotel, and they did. And that was so nice because as a busy mom, it was so nice to, I went on my own, and I went to and got to the hotel on Sunday night, even though my transfer wasn't until, or it was Sunday afternoon until Tuesday. And I felt so rested because I just felt like, oh, it's so luxurious to be at the hotel by myself all day. And so that I think really helped. Like I kind of treated it almost like a time to relax, the transfer trip and everything. And when I went in for the transfer, I had been talking with the people at the clinic for about 6 months by that point. So I brought some candies for the lady that I had been talking to, just because I was so excited to meet her finally. And as far as something that we were just talking about is that you have to have a full bladder when you go into the transfer. And I did not know that until right before, but just knowing how much I go through water, I just decided to try and, I went to the bathroom and then I left for the clinic in the Uber. And then I drank a bunch of water right when I got there to the location. And thankfully that seemed to be the perfect amount for the transfer. And then I took a video of when they on the screen, because they show a screen of the transfer happening. And so I videoed it, although, you don't see anything. And so I kind of thought, do I send it to the parents? Because they were not able to be there in person. But I thought, well, even though they can't see anything, at least they know that, I tried, because if they were there in person, they might video it and still see nothing. So I sent it to them and I said, okay, here's the video of the transfer, but you can't see anything. And then they did respond, thank you so much. We don't see anything, but we're glad to know that you took a video of it. So I kind of tried to take pictures and videos just in case they wanted to see them afterwards. And it was a good experience. And actually right after, that was kind of unplanned, but right by the clinic, there was a place where you could get like a foot massage and pedicure, manicure. So I kind of on a whim, I went and did that, which was perfect because I got to sit and relax and my feet in warm water. And I had heard some surrogates say that's an important thing, to keep your blood circulation by having warm feet. So I got to have a nice foot massage and my feet in warm water. And so I think that was maybe potentially helpful. So that was my little trick I did, and it worked. I mean, I became pregnant.
It worked, No, I think my favorite part of the entire story is just how much collaboration you had with the parents and how they were willing to help you get there the day early and really work with you. And then you reciprocated by helping them out and just, really sharing what you could on the journey. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. So Caitlin, tell us a little bit more about your transfer day. Did you do anything superstitious or fun while you were in the transfer?
So nothing. No, like I had mentioned, me and my intended mother talked about acupuncture. That didn't end up happening, but definitely something that I would like to try. But the experiences were great. It was super exciting, and it was a very exciting moment. Like you were talking about as well with the video. They wouldn't let me video or anything in there. But it isn't much to see. It's like that quick flash, but it's still exciting. So at least the first transfer, I actually was given a picture of the embryo. So I held that up and took a picture for the intended parents and everything. I didn't get that the second transfer, but it's nice too, just because I have that great connection and talk to my intended parents frequently. So we always do a Zoom call prior and after to transfer. So I guess I don't know if it would be anything superstitious, but it's just something that we've kind of always planned to do before and after the transfer. So
yeah, again, just strengthening that bond between your parents and you. And it's a big day for everyone.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, Brittany, tell us about your transfer day. Did you have to travel and did you do anything fun or superstitious?
So my first transfer, our fertility clinic was in Chicago, and it was such a wonderful experience because my IPs flew up as well, and we kind of just made it like a little mini vacation, and we really bonded, and I met their friends. That transfer, the actual transfer itself, was a little uncomfortable. I opted out of the Valium because I was terrified. I didn't know how I'd react to it, and I didn't want to act like silly in front of my IPs. So it was a little uncomfortable due to an excessively full bladder, and had a little bit of scarring that I guess had never come up, that, you know, was never recognized by the fertility clinic. So it was a little uncomfortable, not painful, just uncomfortable. Unfortunately, that transfer did not take. So our second time around, we ended up in a fertility clinic in Dallas, which is just 3 hours away from me. My IPs ended up with COVID. So my mom came with me, which was a nice little bonding experience for us. And I opted for the Valium that time because I'm like, my mom's not going to care how I act. I did do some superstitious things. I did the pineapple and the French fries the day before and day of. I'm not a superstitious person, but after going through a failed transfer, I'm like, I'm going to do anything and everything possible. I had on warm, fuzzy socks, ate my weight in pineapple and French fries. And it was, since I took the Valium, it was really like wham, bam, thinking, man, super easy. And I was able to rest up in the hotel afterwards. So yeah, and it was successful. So I don't know if it was just because I was a little more relaxed or if it's from the French fries and pineapple, but it was successful. So
that's amazing. I love that even just with 3 stories, there's such like a difference in everything that everybody has. And for any potential surrogates who are watching this Q&A, the key that some surrogates say is McDonald's French fries afterwards, or just French fries in general. So it's little superstitions that you'll learn, especially if you come on with Family Source. We have like a big group that meets via Facebook, and we just talk about little tips and tricks and like things to kind of help out and make you feel better. My parents were local, so we each live about an hour away from each other and about an hour from the clinic. The first time that we were able to go, it was right at the end of COVID. So they were just opening everything back up. So it was like a party in our room. I had both intended parents, my husband. There was a nurse tech that was learning. So she was there with the doctor. And then there was also a lab tech was learning. So when they brought in the embryo, there were actually like 8 or 9 people in the room with us. And it was a lot. But it was really cool that everybody got to just kind of be there for support and everything. I didn't really do anything superstitious, but I did have on really fuzzy socks because you get cold. I mean, you're in a procedure. And I think one of the most important things, we're all talking about this full bladder and everything, that is important. It just kind of sets your uterus in the right angle and makes the images clearer for the doctors. But I think it's really important to let everyone know that the transfer is basically just like a PAP. Like it's not any more invasive, it's not any more uncomfortable. You might feel a little bit more pressure, but it's the quickest procedure ever, and then you're done. Okay, this is a super easy question. How long were you asked to continue your medications after transfer? So Zelena, we'll start with you.
Mine was till 12 weeks. It might have even been a little bit like 12 weeks and a few days after, just because that's when the clinic decided. And I had heard in the surrogacy support group through FSE, quite a few had said, oh, at 10 weeks I stopped, or once I had that positive, ultrasound, then I got to stop. And so I kind of was thinking, oh, maybe I'll get to stop, but they were really set on the 12 weeks. And so I just kept doing them. And you're right though. I mean, I can't say that I missed it, but it did feel like something that you could, like, after I got the positive pregnancy test, I felt like, with each shot, I was like, just confirming that I'm pregnant, just keeping that pregnancy going. So it did feel kind of nice to have that, something that you can actually do to, that, helps you feel like you're still being pregnant. So
yeah,
that was
a
good.
tangible task that you're doing. Yeah.
Tangible, yes.
Yeah. All right, Caitlin, do you know how long you have to take medications now?
So now my email said 12 weeks. So hopefully that will get a positive, and I'm fine if there's a positive to keep doing it.
Mhm.
Because I'm just very hopeful. And the first time around, they didn't identify it initially, but, and again, I think that's something important to know too. Like everybody, like even though we're through the same agency, every clinic is a little different when it comes to what you have to do, how long you have to do it. Because again, Delana, like you said, you had heard other people who were done at 10 weeks, other people who were done at different times, and I've heard the same thing. So, but I know in my most recent email, as long as everything is successful and I have a positive test, that I will be continuing all my medications. So my proestrogen and estrase for 12 weeks, up to 12 weeks of pregnancy. So
Perfect. All right, Brittany, what about you? How long do you have to keep your medications?
I should have been prepared for this question, but I truly cannot remember. Maybe 11, maybe 12. Like is 11 weeks a thing? Because I feel like it was not quite 12, but like 11 weeks, but more than 10. So yeah.
And it's really important that we all hit on it, that, you know, like it differs so much from clinic to clinic. The same thing with like the medication protocols. You might have a shot or a pill that nobody else has ever even heard of. It's all just what the clinic has found works best for them and gives them the best results. My clinic personally, I had to go till 9 weeks gestation. So it was only about 7 weeks after transfer, which again was nice, but yeah, I kind of missed having that like finite task every day. It's like, look what I'm doing to promote this little guy. All right, so I think the last question I want to talk about, I always like to end on an advice, because we do have some potential surrogates who are going to be watching this video and maybe they have some questions. So what do you think was the most challenging part about medications and transfer? We may have already hit on that, but what advice would you give to help you overcome those challenges? So Delana, what was the hardest part for you? And what advice would you give to any future surrogates?
I guess I would, kind of, to each person handles things a little differently. And for me, I've always been someone who does reach out to friends and likes to kind of have that support. So for me, joining the monthly support virtual meetings that Denise hosts through FSE was really important because it helped me feel connected. Even like for me, there was probably the hardest part was waiting because I was medically cleared in December, but then through everything just scheduling wise, didn't actually get to do a transfer until June. And I am older. I had filled out my application when I turned 40. And so by the time I was doing the transfer, I was almost 41 and I was starting to kind of feel that stress of, oh, there's not much time. And everyone says, that pregnancies get harder as you age. So it was trying to stay positive through the waiting. So for me, that was the hardest part, was like kind of waiting to get my meds started and waiting to do the meds and waiting for transfer. But through having the support groups and the virtual meetups, I feel like that was super helpful for me to stay positive and to, and the FSC crew was always like, oh, it'll be here before you know it. And they were right. And it all worked out.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And really just leaning on the support systems you have. I love it. All right, Caitlin, what about you? What was something that was particularly challenging and what advice would you give to someone to overcome that?
So the most challenging through this for me was the failed transfer. It hit me a lot harder than I thought it would. I mean, it's just you don't know, and knowing that it's not your own not your pregnancy, not your baby. I mean, I didn't know how I would react if it were to happen, and also being that like I had a positive pregnancy test, but my levels went down. So that was just a very challenging time for me. I mean, it was very emotional, very stressful. It makes you think like, what did I do? None of that's accurate. Like, I mean, just knowing that you did nothing wrong, that having that support, and I think the closeness with your intended parents is very important as well, because they were able to, like, we were able to connect and talk about it and be there for each other, because obviously it's hard on them as they've gone through a lot of difficulty or loss in this journey, and that in prior to this journey, and then to have that happen in the journey, but also having the supports through the agency. Joy, you had immediately reached out to me and had suggested I join the call. You were just talking about just the monthly support group. And that was significantly helpful for me. That definitely, and not that you want to hear that other people are experiencing these things as well, but it makes it a little easier knowing that, oh, it's not just me. It didn't, like, I'm not the only one it's happened to, and whatnot. So, I mean, that I would say was the most difficult. But after all of that, the support with my intended parents and everything, I mean, we went into this second one very, very hopeful, and just being as positive as we can, and knowing that whatever happens, and eventually it will work, and it will be positive and everything. So I would just say, take the support that you have, and reach out to any other surrogates, anybody at FSC, your caseworker, and your intended parents, and just be together for any of those difficult times like that.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that that was a really difficult time for you, and I'm really glad that you were able to talk about it, because I think that's really important to mention too. All right, Brittany, what about you? What was something that was particularly challenging, and what advice would you have?
Well, I hate to follow up once again with the same thing, but actually I think it is very important. But mine was my first failed transfer. It was my intended parents' very last embryo. And so after that, we had to wait for them to find a donor and, create more embryos. And it was the last one that was genetically theirs. So while that was a heavy burden, at the time, I felt like there was not anyone around me who had any failed transfers. So I love that we're talking about this, because it's the reality of it. Like, it doesn't always stick, and it's actually common. So if it happens to you, like, that's okay. But I will say, I am so very thankful that I stuck it through, and we, kept going, and we got the donors, and I stayed with my intended parents. Going into our second transfer, I felt so prepared, and more, not just with the medications and things, but if this fails, it's okay. Like, it happens, and we can do it again. So my advice for anybody is just keep your head up, lean on your support, absolutely. And like, just keep going, because it's worth it. And it's common. It's okay. It's not just you, it happens. And I think since my failed transfer, I've seen more people open up about it. And I think that's awesome, because you do need that support. And I'm thankful I had mine. So,
I mean, we all know that fertility isn't an exact science. I mean, our intended parents live it before they even get to the point of needing a surrogate. And we have to be ready for that reality that you're right. It does happen. It is common, but it doesn't mean anything went wrong necessarily. There's just how the body's going to react, how the medications are going to react, and how the embryo wants to react. I mean, there's so many variables that go into it. So it's nice that you can find that support and kind of like reassure yourself that you did what you could control, and the rest is in the hands of fate or whatever else you might believe in. I think the most challenging part for me was some of the negativity that I got surrounding the surrogacy. For my first journey, I was in a customer service field. And so I had a lot of people that were talking to me all the time and congratulating me on my baby. And I'd be like, oh, well, it's actually not mine, and it would just bring up some not necessarily wanted opinions from people. And some people would like to speak their mind. But I think then having the support of my family and the agency and the close people around me who really mattered made me feel better about it, So it was able to take all that negativity and be like, you know what, I am doing the right thing. This is wonderful, and it's going to help some people out. So I think the most important thing is I want to thank all of you, because we can't do this without you. And I love that you were able to share your stories, especially on something so huge on medications and transfers. Like I said, is like a big part of the journey. So thank you, Delana, Caitlin, Brittany. You are all absolutely wonderful, and FSC wouldn't be able to do what we do without you. For any future surrogates who are watching this or need to reach out, please make sure that you do. We have surrogates online all the time that want to actually reach out and be a reference or help you or answer questions. Case managers like myself are available all the time. We would love to answer anything else that comes up for you and basically just help you understand if surrogacy would be right for you. So thank you for joining today, ladies. It was wonderful to speak with all of you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.